All right, hello and welcome. Thank you for being here today. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Jasera Skates. I generally go by Jay, and I am open to any pronouns. This is Student Government's 8th spring meeting. We will have our next General Assembly meeting on, I did not write that date down, next Tuesday. Oh, wait, 22nd and 2 Tuesdays. Thank you very much. As a part of holding a trauma-informed meeting, I want to let you know that our usual agenda has changed again for today's meeting. Today's student organizations will vote for a fund request. Sorry, excuse me. They will vote, today we will vote on support or non-support of the presentations that you'll be seeing today and that were presented last week. And so you will get that survey link at the end of the meeting today. Today our General Assembly meeting is sponsored by Vice President Denny. So thank you very much for presenting or for sponsoring our meeting today. And with that, I will call the meeting to order. As you know, we have instituted a new attendance sign-in form. If you haven't, please use the QR code here to record your attendance. If you have any questions, please let us know. For those of you online, please edit your name to reflect either the student organization that you are representing or add the word student. Also, please add the pronouns you would like for us to use in this forum. I understand that your pronouns might vary in different settings, so please type the ones you are comfortable with sharing with us here today. As you are checking your attendance, please take a moment to review the minutes from last meeting that you received when you signed in or that were posted in chat. And please raise your hand or comment in chat if you would, if there are any corrections to the minutes. All right, are there any corrections to the minutes at this time? Anything in chat? No? Okay. There being no corrections, the minutes will stand as approved. Okay, so our current fund balance for the student allocation budget is $21,686.52. I am here today to also make the announcement that the fund request by the National Society for Black Engineers passed unanimously with 23 votes in favor. So I want to thank NSBE for presenting 3 times when we only asked for them to present twice, and when the Constitution only says to present twice. So taking the time to do that, I really appreciate that. So up next, we will welcome Enid with, oh, wait.
You're on the USB. So
Okay.
unless we have the $9 first.
I think Enid needs to leave, right? So we want to make sure that Enid's able to go.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me back. Enid, I am the chair for student representatives for SVAC. And as you remember last time, we funded 5 different departments. First one would be counseling services for 67,000. Priority funding for student Office of Student Advocacy for 11,000. Office of Student Involvement, 115,000. Veteran Service Office, 10,000. Office of Student Involvement for student staff for 40,000, for a total of 143,000. Any questions that you have for me today?
SVAC is not asking for an increase in fees, correct?
That's correct. So as of today, we have a 0% increase on for student credit hours.
Any questions? Any questions in mind for Enid and about regarding SVAC? All right. Thank you so much. Okay, up next will be Vice President Denny to talk about some of the tuition and fee information.
Thank you and good morning. I'm Vice President Mark Denny for Vice President for Administration and Finance. My pronouns are he, him, or his. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about proposed increase for, tuition and mandatory fee. All right, I thought we were going at a different order.
You want to go back to?
No, that's fine. This is good. We'll get to the dining dollars when that's on the agenda. All right. So we're making a recommendation to increase our designated tuition dollars. And just a quick look at within tuition, we have statutory tuition, or sometimes just called tuition, and that is for resident undergraduates. That's the $50 per semester credit hour. For resident graduates, it's $100 per semester credit hour. And for non-residents, it's substantially higher. That is controlled by the state and the state legislature, and they set those tuition rates. They're paid to the university, we remit it to the state, and the state turns around and remits it back to the university. So it gets counted as part of the state support that they provide. But we don't have the ability to change that. And then designated tuition is the 196 for resident undergraduates. And like I said, I forget what they are for the other rates. But that's the tuition that we're making a proposal to increase for this next year. Designated differential tuition is college specific, and those range from either zero for College of Education and their undergraduate up to, I believe it's $15 for undergraduate students in College of Business. And there's no recommendations that those be increased at all. And then we'll go down through some mandatory fees. Those are all, and we have to present all of the tuition and mandatory fee increases that are being proposed. Of the mandatory fee, the student service fee that was just presented, no increase is being recommended for it. The student recreation and wellness center fee, that presentation will be coming a little bit later, and there is a request to increase that fee. All of these other fees shown here, there's no increase for this next year, and so there's no presentation being made on those. Any questions so far? Excuse me? The student service fee, and there's no fee, that was SVAC. Student Fee Advisory Council, and there's no recommendation, but they are required to make a presentation each year, whether there's an increase or not. The other fees, we're only required to make a presentation if we're proposing an increase, and we're not, except for the rec and wellness fee, and that one will be presented in a moment. Thank you. All right, so what are the considerations? What are the cost drivers? Obviously, coming out of the pandemic, one of the things we're really seeing is a lot of costs going up significantly. Labor being one of the biggest ones. Is we're anticipating as much as a 5% increase in labor costs for this next year. We anticipate that it will return to a more normal procedure, that our costs in general, labor costs go up about 3% each year, which is a combination of both salary and benefits. Those go up as well. Just recently, the state of Texas required an increase to the annual retirement plan that we make for all of our employees. That went up as well, and it's a percentage based on their salary. So if the salary goes up, then that goes up, but that percentage also increased this last year. But like I said, we're seeing as much as 5% or even higher cost increases for our labor. A lot of other costs are going up as well. What the university is doing is we're trying to take a much long-term and a much more moderate approach in how we raise our tuition rates to address some of those things. We're working heavily to reduce all of our costs as we can, and that's something that's always an ongoing process. We're always looking to ways to reduce our costs, and as you can assume, it's always a balance. When you reduce costs, are you reducing service? And if you're reducing service, then what's the impact to various student groups of those services? And we try to balance that real carefully, making sure that we, for the most part, reduce costs not by reducing services, but by being more efficient and effective with the delivery of those services. Therefore, saving money, but not really reducing the delivery of those services. We also have reserves in the university, and we intend to use those reserves and hopefully ride through this period of high cost increases to get to a more normal, something that's more historical, and not necessarily put all of this in one lump on tuition increases. And then obviously, we are doing some targeted increases to tuition, and that's where we're looking at. But the bottom line is that coming out of the pandemic, we're seeing a lot of our costs increase, and we're trying to not overreact and have a much more measured long-term approach to this and use our reserves and find opportunities to be more efficient and effective. So that gets us to our proposal, is that we increase designated tuition of 2.5% per year, and that works out to be $7 per semester credit hour or $200 per year, assuming you take 15 credits, both fall and spring semester, then that would be how you get to the $210 of increased cost for tuition for a resident undergraduate, and $12 per semester credit hour or $216 per year for a resident graduate student. And just to note, the 216 is only $6 larger than the undergraduate, but yet it's from $7 to $12. That's because for a graduate student, we calculate that based on 9 credits per semester, okay, as opposed to 15, which is for an undergraduate student, if you're taking 15 credits per semester, 2 semesters a year, then you'll be on track to graduate in 4 years. So that's why that number is the user. For our non-resident undergrad and our non-resident graduate, we're not proposing an increase. And there's 2 reasons. One, those are small populations on our campus anyway. But secondly, and more important, is those costs are already substantially higher than our residents. And we feel that we're already at the top of the market for our non-resident students. And by increasing that rate higher, what we'll in effect do is drive many of those students to other universities and away from University of Houston Clear Lake. And in the net, we'll actually see less revenue because we'll drive our enrollment down by increasing that. We want to see over time have those non-resident tuition rates get more in the mid-range for comparable institutions with University of Houston Clear Lake before we start looking at possible future increases. For our resident rates, we would love to keep them low, and we're trying to keep them low with only a 2.5%, but we're in the lower range already. And while we're obviously always concerned about our costs, as a regional public university with access as one of our primary goals, cost is a key element of access. We feel that is necessary to help us address some of the rising costs. This is just a table that kind of lays it all out there, and I won't spend a lot of time going in there, but this is for a resident undergraduate. That's your current tuition rate. Under the rate, the factor is how does it get matriculated out to your total bill? It's per semester credit hour. Some of them, it's a flat fee for the semester. Then the calculation factor, what it currently is for a semester and what it currently is on an annual basis. This slide, again, shows the increases. You'll see most of those columns on the increase. There isn't, but you'll see the $7 per semester credit hour, or $105 per semester, or that's actually $210 for the year for the tuition increase, designated tuition. And then down below, the Rec and Wellness Center fee, they're going to be presenting a little bit later, and they're requesting $11 increase per semester, or $22 per year. And so you see the current per year, $9,410, and the new annual would be $9,642, or $221 increase. And this is looking across each of those student groups: resident undergraduate, non-resident undergraduate, a resident graduate student, and a non-resident graduate student. And the highlighted ones are where the cost would be. And so you'll see that for designated tuition for resident undergraduate and resident graduate, those are the ones that would be increasing. And then for all students, the Rec and Wellness Center fee would be increasing. And you can see at the bottom, the percent increase and the actual dollar increase per year. This is on an annual basis of what those increases would be. And next steps, like I said, this was the same presentation. The next step is summary presentation. That's this presentation I'm giving now. And then there'll be a full presentation to the Planning and Budget Committee, where there's an SGA representative on the Planning and Budget Committee as well. And then that Planning and Budget Committee will make a recommendation to the University Council, and then University Council will make a recommendation to our president for adoption of any of these recommendations. With that, are there any questions? Please.
So for parking and transportation, would that be affected?
Parking and transportation is not a mandatory fee. You can choose to not pay it and get here through lots of other means. We are proposing an increase to the parking fee of, I think, $3, going from $87 to $90 per year. The real rationale behind the parking is while during the pandemic, when many of our classes were remote or distance, it's not been such a challenge, but parking is very challenged on this campus. We don't have near enough. As example, this was pre-pandemic, but on a Tuesday afternoon, which is one of our peak times, we had well over 4,000 students in class on that day, on that afternoon. We have in total 2,500 student parking spaces on this campus. So we don't have enough. The solution to that is we really need to build more parking, and the parking is an auxiliary operation. It has to be self-supporting. So just like the Rec and Wellness Center is also an auxiliary operation. So if they, for parking to be able to build more parking, they have to have the revenue to cover that cost. And so we're going to have to increase the cost of parking in order to be able to build a parking garage. And that's the current plan, is to build a parking garage as opposed to just paving more land out. The campus is trying to keep our natural areas just that, natural, and not pave them with parking lots. And then have to have shuttles to transport you from a parking lot that's a half a mile away from your building. And so we're going to have to go up. And those cost about, on average, about $17,000 per parking space to build a parking garage. So that's, yes, there is a proposal to increase parking fee.
So this is all necessary to get those things done in the future?
I'm sorry, say that again?
So these are like necessary, like the cost reason?
Well, absolutely. There's different ones for each one of them. The tuition increase does not have any impact on parking because I have to keep it separate. We're prohibited by law to use your tuition dollars to pay for parking. Parking has to be self-supporting. But in general, yes, all of these increases are to give the university the capacity for things that we are either currently doing so that we can continue, or to do things in the future to support students to be able to be here on campus. Please.
On the date that the student count was monitored, was the parking lot also monitored? And if so, was it completely full?
It absolutely was. The reason why I happened to check that specific day was I got a phone call from President Blake, who was out in the parking lot trying to direct parking because students couldn't find places to park. And now we were looking at lot D, and I'm pointing to it. I did not go over to the Delta building and see, but I suspect that parking lot was equally full. But we were having to direct students to places that were not authorized for parking, but that they would be out of the way so they wouldn't be blocking traffic. And we called parking transportation and suspended tickets for that afternoon because there just wasn't any. Now that happened to be a unique situation. We had a career fair going on in Atrium 2, which probably brought an additional 1,000 people onto our campus that day. And since then, we've tried to not schedule those types of events on those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoons when we're at our peak for students being on campus in class. But there's no way around it. Like I said, we are a campus of just over 9,000 students. And like I said, we have in total 2,500 student parking. We have a total of 3,000 parking in total on campus. We have 500 spaces for staff. We have just over 1,000 staff on our campus. So we're short for parking significantly. Thank you very much. Yes, please.
You mentioned that y'all trying to reduce the impact of costs on the academic programs. So what's something that y'all have been able to identify? What's something y'all have been doing that has been reducing costs to the academic programs?
Certainly. One of the things the university is initiating on is an energy savings performance project that it will cost about a little over $3 million to do all this stuff to reduce our energy consumption, but that will reduce our energy consumption of about $200,000 per year. That's using today's rates. Those rates will continue to go up as we go forward. So actually the savings will be even greater over time. We aren't taking debt out. We have the $3 million in fund balance. And so we're just going to take the $200,000 in savings that academic programs, all of those that pay those utility bills, and then use those dollars towards addressing our deferred maintenance and building upkeep. So I don't have to divert other dollars to those areas as well going forward. So that's just one example of cost saving. We're implementing a automatic document flow process that reduces staff time to manage workflow of documents that need to be signed, things like that. And that's, I know, a little bit in the weeds, but the more we can reduce that effort that it takes to do that, then we don't have to hire additional administrative support to be able to do that. And so those are just a couple of examples of ways that we're trying to reduce our costs. Sure.
Hello.
Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Teresa. In regards to the parking, as soon as y'all do get the funds, how long will it take for y'all to build the actual parking garages for the university?
The actual construction is probably about a little over a year. Architectural design and things like that in advance is probably another 8 to possibly 12 months. So really 2 years. We'll start that process before we have all of the funds, so that I have all the funds by the time we're actually putting a shovel to the dirt, if you will. My anticipation right now is our current, if we don't do some other things, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds on that, there's some other things we can do to generate additional revenue. But if we don't do some of those, parking rate needs to be somewhere in the 125 a year to be able to pay for the cost of building a parking garage. And like I said, we're just getting to 90, and it's really not been my desire to jump all at one time to go from 90 to 125. I think that would be a bit of a shock to everybody and a challenge to be able to pay that. So to be honest, it's going to take a couple of years, a few years to get to where we have the revenue to build that parking garage just over time. Our campus went for about 12 years without raising parking rates at all. And we should have been at that time. And had we been doing that at that time, we'd be either have a parking garage now or be building one now. But we have some catch up to do because those weren't done during that time.
Okay, so another question, what is the long-term goal in regards to the parking garages? Will there be like charges for the parking? Once the garages are built, are y'all going to continue to do the charging and everything to keep up the current parking that we have in the garages? Like where they go in and, pay for the parking, or will it be like overall, like you have to pay for one semester or both semesters for the parking in regards to that?
Well, my preference really, and again, I'm going way out of the conversation. I want to be sensitive to the time, so I'll be very brief. I believe that what we should do for students is switch to an access fee and not charge for parking. So every student pays the access fee, because right now, about 75% of our students pay for parking, about 25% don't. They ride the shuttles, they do other things. And I want to encourage riding the shuttles because that's more economically friendly and it's environmentally friendly. But right now, if you choose to ride the shuttles, you're doing so for free, and the students that are paying for parking are subsidizing the shuttle service. And that's an equity challenge that I admit I struggle with that. So what I would prefer to do, but this requires a lot more effort and process across our campus, which we've chosen to delay and not try to initiate that during the pandemic. And so we'll pick up that once we return to normal, whatever that looks like. But an access fee in and of itself, without increasing what people pay, would generate probably half of the dollars we need to get to a parking garage. And then just a slight increase in that access fee over time would then generate the dollars to build the parking garage and maintain the parking garage, because that's the piece that I think your question was getting to, is that you build it, but they don't last forever. They eventually, there's going to be 30, 40 years down the road, that parking garage is going to have to be torn down, a new one replaced. If we continue to grow as a campus, we probably need 2 parking garages, not 1. Again, all of those types of things. If at any point the revenue is exceeding what we need for operations, we absolutely will reduce it. But that's not the nature of things, because we have to maintain the parking garage. You can't just build it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, basically, I'm just, I just have questions in regards to, down the road in the future in regards to the parking garages for the university. So basically that answers all my questions.
We do have a plan. We just haven't enacted it because we felt that was too much to try and do during the pandemic. With that, if there are no further questions, thank you very much. I appreciate your attention, and thank you. I think I'll be up in a little bit. I'll skip the introduction and dive right into this. This is not a mandatory fee. This is an optional fee. The only students that it's mandatory for is those students that live in Hunter Residence Hall. But then obviously the choice to live in Hunter Residence Hall is an optional. That's what makes this fee an optional fee. And this is for their declining dollars at all of our dining facilities on campus or other places where they can get food. And this really steps up with, this is where we're currently at, is $1,400 per semester is the minimum. We do have 2 additional plans, 1680 and 2100. And just to look at what does it really cost to eat here for a semester. And I would venture to say that every one of us is spending at a minimum of $2,000 per semester or more to eat, even if we're pretty frugal on what we eat. We're in that range. And just some examples is if you were to have 2 meals a day for 14 weeks and recognize that the The semester is actually 16 weeks long. But if you spent $10 a meal, which is doable at the Patio Cafe, 14 a week. I said the semester is 16 weeks. It counts for all 16 weeks. Sorry. So that's $2,240 that you would spend per semester. If you ate 3 meals a day, and because you're eating more meals, you pared down all of those meals so that you averaged about $6 a meal, which you could get a hamburger, but you're not going to get hamburgers and chips and a soda for that, or you can get a salad for less than $6. You can get a lot of those types of things. You're still spending $2,000 a semester. If you eat 10 meals a week, which I don't know how you get 10 meals a week, I think you could do 2 meals a day, but that's 2 days. You're still left with 2 days a week that you're pretty hungry. Sure. Oh, I can't be heard? Okay.
Can you all hear now? Online?
Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you. So anyway, like I said, you can get down to the $1,400, but that's still only 10 meals a week, and you're skipping a lot of meals. And while maybe I could use some of that, it's still not a long-term healthy plan. And so the real reason why we're proposing an increase to the minimum plan is that we feel for students, we're setting up an expectation that better? Thank you. We're setting up an expectation that you can enroll at UH Clear Lake, and for the $1,400 a semester, you can eat for that semester and are not going to have to come up with other dollars. And we feel that that is setting up our students for sometime in late October, early November to be out of money on their dining plan and have not planned for any other path to be able to eat for the rest of the semester. And that's really the primary reason why we're proposing an increase. There we go. So here's a look at what some of the other meal plans are around the Houston area. This is the University of Houston. Now, granted, they do not have a declining dollars. And most of these meal plans are not declining dollars like ours is. They're an actual meal plan. So you get a tray, you go in, you fill it with whatever you want, and you go out. But their bronze, silver, and gold, all of those are above $2,000 per semester. At Victoria, they've got one that's $1,500. But that's that average 10 meals a week, which is still challenging. And then their commuter plans, those are declining dollars that they get you so many meals. At Texas Southern, again, they've got some pretty inexpensive, but 14 meals a week. That's 2 meals a day for 7 days a week. That's pretty comparable with our costs. But as you can see, I'm not really sure how they're managing that. So our formal request is to increase the minimum declining balance plan from $14 a semester to $15 or $1,500 per semester for this coming year, and then $1,600 for the following year after that. And then at that point, stop, because we feel that we're close enough to the $2,000 of what it really costs to eat, that we're giving a pretty clear message and a clear expectation to our students that that's going to get you pretty close, recognizing that it still gives our students the flexibility to choose to eat elsewhere other than just on campus. But they would still have, this would give them the ability to have the preponderance of their meals on campus, which is where they live. The student advisory, the Student Dining Advisory Council, they had extensive conversations. They took a vote, and they have a total of 8 voting members, and 6 voted, and they had basically split. 3 voted in favor of supporting this increase, and 3 voted against it. And then, like I said, 2 didn't vote. And their pre-concerns were that be better address, that they understand as enrollment and revenue increases. But they still remain concerned over individual meal costs at the dining facility and want to see improved meal options and quality and more healthy options. And one of the challenges there is that for all of our auxiliary operations, those are new operations on our campus. Our campus is still predominantly a commuter student that has a substantial life outside of this campus. We're not a traditional campus. And so support for our auxiliary operations are challenged, certainly have been during this pandemic. As the university grows, as we get to full enrollment in Hunter Residence Hall, that larger student population will drive more business to the Patio Cafe. As we come out of the pandemic, that larger population on our campus will just naturally drive more business to the Patio Cafe, which will then enable them to have more healthy options, a broader variety of food, things like that, that right now those are challenged with our low enrollment in the Hunter Residence Hall. And so it's kind of a catch-22. You can have better options when you have more revenue. To have more revenue, you need better options. And so we're trying to balance and not push too heavy to one or the other. The Patio Cafe has made substantial improvement in their meal offerings and their freshness over the last couple of years, and they're committed to continuing with that. I said, moving forward, a path forward is we're trying to get to a lot of the things that we've done, separation between the service and the seating areas, which enables at times to the Patio Cafe to extend their hours of operation without having to have the full kitchen open, because there is access from the coffee shop back into the kitchen, so they can still serve food but not have to have quite as much staff. That allows them to lower their costs and be open later. That's one of the challenges that, especially on weekends and things like that, the Patio Cafe is not open all the hours that the residents want, but that's because under their current configuration, it was a heavy labor bill to be able to be open. By separating that off, we can close that, just have access to the coffee shop and still do not a full service, but still a larger service and keep our labor costs down. Use of the Boost mobile app, something like that, working on having greater residency in the Hunter Residence Hall. And then once we have a more complete return to campus, those things will all bring in additional revenue in the Patio Cafe, which will allow us to have a lot of these things that the students are wanting. And that completes my presentation. Are there any questions about the dining proposal? Please.
It says on here that there's going to be Boost app. What does that mean?
More adoption, more use of it. Really, one of the things that they are trying to do within the Boost mobile app, though, is right now you cannot see any pictures of what it is that you might be ordering, which makes it a little harder to tell, is that the thing I want to order or not. Most of it's fairly straightforward, but that was one of the requests from the student advisory group, was that they wanted to see Chartwell's add photos of the items and that they can order through the Boost mobile app. They're currently working on that to be able to do that. But really, when I say Boost expansion of the Boost mobile app, is really adoption of it, so that it makes it easier. You don't have to wait as long, which then facilitates for students that have maybe a 30-minute gap between classes, that you can order and go down and pick it up and then go to your class, as long as the faculty member allows you to eat in class, which I think most of them will. But then you don't have to take as long and therefore have to forego eating, because that 30-minute gap is not long enough to get in line, order your food, get it, and so on. So that's really the hopes, is using the Boost mobile app. Yes, please.
I have a question. If the meal plan increase, this time, for example, we had a week them from fall semester, then most of the students of the Western Coast doesn't finish that meal plan, then money going to transfer for the next semester?
Well, right now, the reason why we don't allow to carry over, the question is that right now, if you have a meal plan, it's $1,400 a semester. If you don't spend that full $1,400, let's say you only purchase $1,200 worth of food at the Patio Cafe, we don't allow that $200 to roll over to the next semester. And the reason for that is that based on the population of the residence hall and have the meals, Chartwell's has already spent that money in preparing the food. It's unfortunate, and we need to work on getting food that people actually want to come and get and eat, but they've already spent those dollars to have that food available. And if it wasn't eaten, it doesn't change that they still spent those dollars. So that's the reason why we don't allow the rollover. The path is really to continue to work on the quality and the appeal of the food in the patio cafe so that students want to get their food there. Because I'm confident that all of those students, and I gave a presentation at Hunter Residence Hall with residents, and I'm confident, and they said that, well, because they may not, either the variety, and so the food gets boring to them after a while, and so they don't eat at the patio cafe. They were acknowledging that they were still going out and getting food somewhere else. So they're spending the dollars. The challenge is they're not spending it at the patio cafe. And that's what we really need to work on, is be able to make the food appealing and of a high enough quality and variety so that the students, that's where they choose to spend their dollars. And that's the reason, but that is the reason why, even though I firmly believe everybody spends $2,000 or more per semester, we don't want that minimum plan to get to 2,000. We want to have some gap so that students can choose to eat elsewhere, but that the real solution is to make the patio cafe and our other dining options appealing so the students want to eat there.
I have a question. Would any of the money that you'd be receiving upon the increase would be allocated to actually like renovating the patio cafe, or like I would say updating it? Because I know there's like at least some tables, and then obviously they're outside, so they're exposed to oxygen, but they're rusting. Is any of that money being planning to be, spent to renovate?
Yeah. Direct answer to your question is no. The dollars that go to that go to the operation of the patio cafe and not to the cafe. The university is responsible for maintaining the actual cafe. And have we placed the order, Debbie?
No, we're close.
Okay, but we are getting new furniture for outdoors.
Okay, good.
Okay, we recognize the challenge of that furniture. We built the air vestibule to encourage students people to go outside and enjoy our outdoor seating. Now we need to get outdoor seating that you actually want to go out and sit in. There's some challenges with that because I'm sure you're all aware, we actually get hurricanes that come here occasionally. And so we need to get furniture that, to the most extent, we don't have to pick it up and move it inside. It'll withstand unless we get a real extreme. But these have sun umbrellas and movable seating. They have some high tables, some low tables, and appropriate chairs and things like that. And so I think it will really improve, but we're working on it. We haven't got it ordered yet. And then of course, with the pandemic, the delivery time is hard to gauge. I know we have a promise from the vendor, but we'll see how long. But we are working that, but it's the dollars you pay for your food, for the meal plans, go towards the delivery of food. And I use other dollars to keep the upgrade. Thank you. If there are no further questions, thank you very much. I appreciate your attention today.
So really quick, I'll do a shameless plug for the Dining Advisory Council. Please join it if you're interested in being a part of making these decisions. We've had a lot of conversations about food.
All of our advisory councils, we have a parking.
Okay. Yes, yes.
We have a parking and transportation advisory council. We need to get students to participate on. We have a bookstore. We have and the dining as well. Please, all of them.
Yes. Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about making sure that the patio furniture is accessible as well. So to all. So anyway, with that, I will introduce Brian Mills for the proposed recreation and wellness fee increase.
I promise I'll be shorter too.
I will say it's 1219, so.
Yep.
It's 1219. So
On it. All right, so, good God, we're gonna do that. We good? Y'all need that? Do they need that?
they need that.
All right, I'll just talk loud because that's annoying. All right, Brian Mills, Director for Campus Rec and Wellness. All All right, let's see if that's any better. We good? We good online? All right, well, I'll just keep going and y'all tell me if I need to talk louder. All right, so I'm going to skip through some of this stuff like I did last week. What we are asking for is a 10% increase from your dedicated fee, which right now is at $110. This would increase starting in FY23, so September 1 next fall. That would bump us up to $121 per semester. For the long semesters, the summer is a maze of complexity that I can't explain, but there's still a cap at one or whatever our long semester amount is. And then there would be another 10% jump in FY24. That would bring us to $133 per semester. And based on projections, that would get us in a position where we're not in the red quite as bad as we are now. Okay. So some of the things that we 100% will use this money for, and this is again, not in order, but the very bottom bullet point, create capital reserves. That is required by state law. So far, we have set aside $0 in 4 years of operating. We are supposed to set aside roughly 15% of the total cost of construction, which is about $5 million, give or take. And we have some years to stretch that out to make that reserve fund happen. But honestly, we need to be setting aside anywhere from $150,000 to $350,000 a year. Is my math roughly correct, Mark, give or take? The ideal would be about $275,000 to $325,000 every year. Right now, we are not able to do that because the $110 semester literally pays for the building to exist and nothing else. It pays for it to sit on the ground, lights on some of the time, doors locked, not operating, just be there and be pretty. That's what 110 gets you. Since we opened, we have been operating essentially in a deficit because there are a lot of things that go into running this facility, and not just the facility, but the programs, not just the beautiful rec center, but also the fields, all right, the staff that goes along with that, the programs and the services. Those are all things that are not all revenue driven, so that we don't charge for all of those things. We charge for some, but not all. All right, but the number one thing, create the capital reserves. We have to do that by state law. The number two thing that we would use this money for is increase our student employee wages. Right now, our students are, I believe, just about the lowest paid students on this campus, regardless of what the position entails. Our average student employee makes $7.76 an hour. They have roughly 30 to 40 hours of onboarding and training, including national certifications for risk management that they have to complete before they can work. And they get paid $7.76. Our personal trainers, our group fitness instructors, which have national certifications, which took months and years to obtain and hundreds of dollars to test out for, they make $10.17. They could do the same job at another facility for $25 to $50 to $75, depending on what they do. Okay, so our student employees are woefully underpaid for the job that they perform. We want to bring that up, still not anywhere close to the top, but at least get us out of the bottom in terms of hourly wages. The number three thing, increase the hours of operation. Our hours of operation, I still remember when I got here, they said, well, you can only do what you can afford to do. Well, if that was the philosophy, we couldn't do anything. All right. And again, in our original pro forma, there are $0 allocated to any student employment. That projection is anywhere between $300,000 to $400,000 a year that we somehow have to come up with, and we have, thanks to Deja and Mark. David, you haven't been here when it's been that bad, so you don't quite get credit yet, but Dr. Cook, Dr. Biggers, Dr. Maxwell, Dr. Hart, everybody who has essentially helped us kind of bubble gum and Band-Aid this together, all right? But again, we have got to figure out how to make this sustainable, and revenue generation, while it is crucial, and it is something that we are doing very well right now, it's not really impacting the students as much as it's going to be if we don't get an increase in the fee. So right now, the only way that we can generate money is through rentals and through the services that we provide. Services, very small amount of revenue. Our rentals right now, we're projected to bring in about $75,000 to $80,000 in rentals. Almost all of those have very little impact on the students. But if we don't get a fee increase, we are going to have to start renting out the facility more and more. And that means you will be competing for space with rentals. All right. Our non-student memberships is the other way that we generate revenue. And right now I hate to say it, we're killing it. We have 866 non-student members. Up until this past year, we never had over 400 in a month. We've been over 700 for 3 months in a row now. All right, and there's a lot of factors to that. But the good news is that they're paying us more than what you pay to be a member of this facility. Without this fee, we're not publicizing the public membership. But if we don't get a fee increase to support what we're doing, we are going to have to start relying more and more on them, which means you will be competing for space and equipment and programs and services with non-students. Okay. So other than that, the other bullet points that are on there are all obviously important. But again, the number one thing are capital reserves. Number two are student employee wages. Number three, expansion of hours. I sent David an email Friday night at 9, whenever I was driving home, text to talk. I was driving safely, but I told him it's time for us to look at expanding our hours. And we want to expand on Friday nights, Saturday mornings, Saturday nights, and Sunday nights. We also want to look at expanding Monday through Friday, opening up a little bit earlier than what we're doing now. But right now, I'm going to propose about 8 hours of expanded operation, hopefully in April if this passes. If it doesn't pass, I don't know what to say about when we're going to be able to make that happen. It's going to depend on how much revenue we can generate. Okay. All right. Questions for me? Yes, sir. If this passed, I think I have enough support from people that are looking at me smirking, smiling, that they know my hope is that as soon as this passes, I want to do the expansion of hours as quickly as we can. Because not only does it help us, it obviously gives y'all more hours. Again, we've never had a normal year of campus rec. We've had, the first year doesn't count. And then we had hurricanes, and then we had COVID and COVID and COVID. All right, so we haven't had people on campus to really look at a full year and go, this is what we expected, this is what we're going to grow from. Hunter Hall, our Hunter Residence Hall before COVID had 67 residents-ish. Now they're at what, I'm sorry, I don't know this, 160, give or take. Well, now we have more people on campus. So us being open past 6 o'clock on a Friday and a Saturday makes sense. Us being able to open earlier on a Saturday makes sense now because our usage numbers, as of last Tuesday, we're already at close to 80,000 people checking in. All right, so we know the usage is there and we know the building will get used. Now, the flip side, we expand hours, that also makes us more, a better option for non-members too. All right, and again, that's not a bad thing for anybody. Yes, sir.
I just want to know how you think the creation of the student center will impact your operations.
I would love it. I would love it because I would sell all of my rental stuff to them. I will sell them my tables, my tablecloths, my lights, and they can take all of those conferences that we are dealing with. Not that I don't love doing them, I do. They're fun, but having a student center it's the same thing I said when I got here. Rising tide raises all ships. You build a student center, you get better food options, you get better cafe, you get better seating, you get better spaces to study and hang out and actually get to be a student. That was one of my favorite things about my undergrads was hanging out in the student centers. Bowling out, we had bowling alleys and other things. I studied there. My wife and I would go to Wendy's. She wasn't my wife then, but we'd go to Wendy's and eat Wendy's every other day. I used to be super fat. I'm still just kind of fat. But I absolutely think a student center would be fantastic. And I think it would just enhance what we're able to do. Because it would give another reason to be on campus. All right, other questions? Any questions online? Cool. All right, thank y'all, appreciate it.
All right. Given that it is currently 12:29, I'm going to table the remaining so thank you for your questions. Thank you for participating today. You should be receiving, for those of you here in person, a copy of the QR code to actually go and vote. We're also asking for feedback, so please put your thoughts in those open text sections. We want to know more about your thoughts on these fees, so that way we can also know how to move forward better and to either present or what you want, what do you want to see, what you need, and anything also that's going really well with these areas. So please provide your feedback in those open text areas. All right, with that, the next Spring Student Government Assembly meeting will be held on March 22nd, 2022 in person and through Zoom for those who are unable to attend in person. At 11:20, Student Government will hold a weekly mindfulness activity. If you want to participate, please be here. Other than that, our meeting will begin at 11:30. To schedule agenda time, please complete a request form and on the Student Government website by 12 noon on Wednesday, March 16th. Those forms are available on Get Involved or at www.uhcl.edu/SGA. And our quote of the day is this. Okay. My identity is not my obstacle. My identity is my superpower. Because the truth is, I am what the world looks like. You are what the world looks like, by America Ferrera. So with that, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much for being here today. Please do the survey and feel free to pass that information on to others. I will, as soon as the videos are downloaded, I will put the link to the videos on that survey as well, if you have any questions and want to refer back to them. Thank you very much for being here today.